is holy.
That's holy. That's holy. Good morning. Good morning. Afreilichen Purim. Should be a very special day, Mir Tzashem. Today we're learning Maseches Yevamos, Daf Yud. We are on the second line, and we are in the midst of analyzing a statement from the previous Amud of Rabbi Phil and also said by Rav. And that is that all of the cases in our Mishnah can check off two boxes. This is on the fifth line of Testament base, just to review, which is that in every case we can say that Asura lazeh muteres lazeh. That's number one. And the second thing we can say is Achosa shehivimto, that we're talking about sisters who could either be choletzes or miyabemes. The Gemara says on the second line of Yud Amud Aleph as follows: Rav Ada Karchina was Kamei de Rav Kahana, was in front of Rav Kahana, and Amar Mishmei de Rava, and he quotes Rava saying Le'olam Islay LeRebbi Hani Klale. Really, Rebbe does agree with these two klalim, that every case in our Mishnah could either be Asur lazeh muteres lazeh, and, or it should be both, this and that, it can be that, and it can also be that they are sisters. The Hachi Ka'amarle, really, here's what Rebbe was saying. Imo anusas aviv, in a case where a person's mother, he became a child because his mother was violated. In imo anusas aviv, in bichada mishkachasla, we can check off one of those two boxes, but bitarte lo kamishkachasla. We're going to describe the case. It's one of the drawings here. We'll discuss it in a moment. Let's get into the language of the Gemara, and then we'll look at the first picture that we have on Yevamos, that we have on this sheet that I printed out where it says Yevamos Daf Yud. So what's the case? It says, if Yaakov beis achayos anas, he violated two women and then there were subsequent children. The Gemara leaves out all of the details of the family tree other than that. And the Gemara says, achosa shehi evimto mishkachas. So yes, they are sisters. These two sisters who were violated, yes, they're sisters. But ha'asur lazeh muteres lazeh lo mishkachas. So now look at the picture over here. It's this picture which has the two check boxes. This one over here. So the picture looks like this. Yaakov violated two women. That's the red ink here. Yaakov violated Chana and they had Levi. And then Yaakov violated Penina and had Yehuda. Shimon married Penina. And Ruvain married Chana. And then Ruvain and Shimon died. And that causes for quite a problem. Because now there needs to be some Yibum. Who's alive? Levi and Yehuda are still alive, but Yehuda is Penina's son, and Levi is Chana's son. So now we have Achos Shehi Yevimto. In theory, there should be some type of Yibum between Yehuda and Chana, and between Levi and Penina, but they're married to some of them. So we don't have Asur lazeh muteres lazeh in this case because they're related to one another. These are all Anusas Aviv. It's all the same father. So they can't be with that person. So there is no Asur lazeh muteres lazeh, but there is Achosa shehi yevimta because they are sisters. Penina and Chana are sisters, and that's why we have only half of these cases. That's why this case is not mentioned in our Mishnah because it doesn't check off both boxes of Rabbi Phil. Our Mishnah only includes cases that can check both boxes of Achosa shehi yevimta. Here we get a check mark, but it doesn't include the box of Asur lazeh muteres lazeh. There is no check box. So that's why this case is left out. And the Gemara qualifies V'i beis nachrios on us. Had he violated two random women, nachrios here does not mean not Jewish. Nachrios means random women within the Jewish community, so they're Jewish. If these women were random women and not siblings, then we have Asur lazeh muteres lazeh mishkachasla. Yes. If you replace Chana and Penina with this picture, who are sisters, with two women who are not sisters, then we have Asur lazeh muteres lazeh. That's true, but then they're not sisters, and then it wouldn't be in the Mishnah Mimanavshach because it doesn't check both boxes either way. And therefore, Rebbe very well may hold of Rabbi Chia's parameters of that they're achos, that they're sisters, and that they're Asur lazeh muteres lazeh. However, this case can't fit because it doesn't belong. But Rebbe does agree. Says the Gemara. Hold on one second. Really, Rav Ashi Omar, we're 12 lines down or so. No, that's not correct what you said. Really, Rebbe doesn't agree with Rav Chia. Ubeplugta kamairi. And really, our Mishnah would even include cases that have a machlokas. That was an idea we mentioned yesterday, that maybe our Mishnah won't include cases of machlokas. No, Rebbe says that they would include cases of machlokas. Umay, what then was Rebbe's reaction yesterday to Levi? Kimidume anish ein lo moach bekad kado. Why did he say to him, to Ka'amar Le, why did he say to him that you have no head in your brain? Quote the case of a machlokas that he wanted to bring. What? It's very rude. You guys are not nice people. It's kol haposhed yada. You should be nice to everyone today. So says the Gemara, why is it that he says that you have no brain in your head? Because he says to Levi, you misread the whole Mishnah. Shkoyach. Dodo, Nosten lo. Says the guy, I got it. I'll be makabel. Says the Gemara because he misread the Gemara. Hachi kamarle. My time lo dayakas masnisin. Why didn't you make an inference from a Mishnah? It's actually not our Mishnah. The masnisin Rabbi Yehuda Our Mishnah is talking about Rabbi Yehuda. What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? The asar be'anusas aviv. The reason why it shouldn't be included in our Mishnah is because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't agree with it, and the Mishnah is Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Diktani, we have a Mishnah that reads as follows: Shesha rayos chamuros me'ilu. We know that there are a total of 21 rayos, 15 in our Mishnah. There are 6 others that have a chumrah that are not listed in our Mishnah, listed in a different Mishnah, and they're strict in that mipnei shehein nesuos la'acherim in tsarosehen mutaros. Who are these 6 people? Well, let's learn 3 of them. Imo, a person's mother, ve'eshes aviv, the wife of his father, ve'achos aviv, and the sister of his father. Now, what is the case of Imo? My Imo, halfway down. What does it mean, his mother? Ilema nesuas aviv. If we're talking about the woman that his father married, well, that's the second case that was listed. Hainu eshes aviv. Look at the list right above. Imo, eshes aviv, and achos aviv. So if Imo is his mother who's married to his father, that's the same as eshes aviv. The cases have to be different cases. Therefore, elo what? Elolav anusas aviv. We are talking about anusas aviv. Viktani, what does the Mishnah say about this case? Mipnei shehein nesuos la'acherim. They can only marry certain people. La'acherim in and la'achin lo. They are not able to marry the brothers, and that's looking back at our page. They cannot marry Levi and Yehuda. And whose shita is this? Man shamas levi islei haisvar. Whose opinion is this about anusas aviv not being acceptable within our Mishnah? That's Rabbi Yehuda. Da amar anusas aviv and mishum hachi lo tanila. So maybe Rebbe actually does hold of Reb Chia. Still not clear yet. So amar le Ravina le Ravashi.
So are we saying Imo is anusas aviv?
When the Mishnah speaks about the Shesha Rayos, the Imo is Anusas Aviv, who cannot marry the Yibum brothers of Levi and Yehuda.
Biological mother, correct?
But it's not his, what? It is his biological mother. It's not marrying him, it's a Yibum Shaila.
I'm not following the case.
Why not? What's the problem?
It's only Yevamos,
Help me.
So,
Anusas of Aviv resulted in his birth.
right.
So why is she zakuk Yibum?
She's Zakuk Yibum because Ruvain and Shimon are brothers to her child from another marriage. So look at this picture. Look at the picture. Yaakov has another wife. Oh, it's a new one.
That's why. Okay,
On the top. Cheat sheet. So on the first picture where it says Yevamos in the top right corner, so there it says that Yaakov violated 2 women and was married to a third. So when he violated the 2 women, with Chana he had Levi, and with Penina he had Yehuda. He had a regular wife. The blue line is a regular marriage, healthy, hopefully no abuse. What? The marriage, whatever. It was marriage. It wasn't violation. No, guys, this is a tough crowd this morning. Standard marriage. Thank you. So they had Shimon and Ruvain. So who's the father of all 4 kids? Yaakov. But the mother of Ruvain and Shimon is Malka, and Penina had Yehuda, and Chana had Levi. So if Yaakov dies, okay, hold on a second before that. And then because the Anusas Aviv, Penina and Chana were violated, Shimon was allowed to marry, that's Machlokas, that's what Rabbi Yehuda doesn't like. Shimon is allowed to marry Penina, and Ruvain married Chana. They got married because the father violated those women, and it's not their mother. It's a random woman as it relates to them, potentially. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't agree with this.
Once she has children, once there are children from that man, even though it's Anusa,
that's a machlokas tanaim.
Isn't that the end of why is there Yibum?
Because then Ruvain and Shimon died, right, and Levi and Yehuda are subject in theory to Yibum, to these 2 women, because they are to Penina. Yeah, Ruvain and Shimon died, right, and Ruvain and then Chana and Penina are now alive, right, and Levi and Yehuda are supposed to be miyabim, either Penina or Chana. They can't in this case. And that's what the Gemara says, because they're all Nesuas Aviv. They're all basically, they all share a father, and that's why it's problematic. But the case that the Gemara was saying here was not exactly our case. So if you look back in the Gemara here, it says that the case is Imo the Eshes. Okay, so we said who is Imo? Ilema nesuas aviv, it can't be his father's wife. Hainu eshes aviv. Elalav anusas aviv. Viktani mipnei shehein nesuos la'acherim. So these women cannot marry the brothers of Levi and Yehuda. The Gemara is agreeing with that they're not allowed to marry those people. They can only marry la'acherim in, but they can't la'achin lo. They're not allowed to marry the brothers. They cannot marry Levi and Yehuda because they share a husband, Chana and Penina, and that husband has two sons, Levi and Yehuda. So this is all Rabbi Yehuda. This is all le'asor. You're right. Rabbi Yehuda says none of this is allowed. He's saying that's one of the things. That's what you missed in the Mishnah. He says to Levi. Rabbi says to Levi, you missed all of this. Rabbi Yehuda holds that this is all usher because of Yaakov. Yaakov is the linchpin in this whole sugya that Levi and Yehuda cannot be miyabe, Penina and Chana. That's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. That's why Rabbi said you got nothing in your brain. You have nothing in your. Why do I keep saying that? Nothing in your skull. There's nothing. You're not allowed to do that. Why did you miss that? So that was what the Gemara said in Mishum Hachi Lo Tanila, because the case is a forbidden case. Good. So then Amar le Ravina le Ravashi, Rabbi Yehuda nami mishkachasla. Even within Rabbi Yehuda, we should be able to present a case in our Mishnah like this of Arvanasiv if he violated the rule and married that woman anyways. So let's say Yehuda married Chana in this case. It's not Yehuda. Chana is not Yehuda's mother. It's Usser. Why don't we include that case in the Mishnah? So the Gemara says the cases of the what ifs, like we always say in our parlance. What if? We're not doing all the what ifs in our Mishnah. No room for that.
Could that also just be Ashes Aviv once he marries her? I mean, who cares that?
It's not Ashes Aviv because Chana was not ever married to Yaakov.
But then it says that he married her.
Yehuda married Chana.
Oh, Yehuda married her.
One of the children generations, one of the Miyabim married Chana. Yeah. But the Gemara says the cases of what if, so then Delok Tani. What?
You have the father, it doesn't matter if it's marriage or not marriage.
That's Machlokas Tanaim.
Oh.
That's why that's what Rabbi was upset about with Levi. Why did you not just say that the Mishnah was like Rabbi Yehuda who forbids all of this? But there are others who say that Anusas Aviv, the bond between a father and his victim of sexual assault, it's not marriage. It's not marriage, and therefore she's eligible to marry a child. In theory, she's a random woman. So the question is, how do we learn? What? So then the question is, how do we interpret Knaf Aviv? Is Knaf Aviv like you can't be with the woman that your father was with because they were married, or because be'etzem they had tashmish amita? So that's a machlokas that we saw earlier. Now, Amar le Rav Ashi le Rav Kahana below de'i nami mishkachasla. Even without a what if case, even without that, I can give you a case for Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. This is going to be the picture on the bottom. Yaakov onas kalaso. Yaakov violated his daughter-in-law. So Yaakov has a son. This is the bottom picture on the first page. Yaakov has a son named Shimon. Shimon has two wives, Chana and Penina. And he violated Chana, and they had a son named Shmuel. Shmuel was not Shimon's child with Chana. Shmuel was Yaakov's child with Chana. Okay, let's go back into the Gemara. So Yaakov onas kalaso v'holi b'mena bein, and they had a son named Shmuel. Umeis Ruvain below Banim. Oh, that Shimon is supposed to be Ruvain. Sorry, that should be. It's when it says Shimon, it should say Ruvain. Umeis Ruvain below Banim, and Shimon never had children. The Nafla La and Chana fell to who? Kame Bira, because her son Shmuel, it's Yaakov's son.
Is her brother-in-law.
It's her brother-in-law. Right. So because of that, Yaakov, because Shmuel and what should be Ruvain. Shmuel and Ruvain really are brothers from the father's side. So the Yibum of Chana fell to her son. Umigu de'ihi asira. And because Chana obviously cannot marry her son, we just spent 8 blot analyzing what the word aleha means, that you can't do a parent-child relationship here. So Rasa Nami Asura, Penina also cannot be married by Chana, by Shmuel. Shmuel cannot marry Penina either. So that case should fit in our Mishnah. Amarle, no, be'achosa de hetera kamairi. We're dealing with relationships that are normative relationships. However, here that is not what we're talking about. That Yaakov violated Chana. That's not what we're talking about. This case does not belong. Oh, he cannot. Tsar is asr. That's what the Gemara says. It says that Tsarasa nami asira. 6 lines from the bottom. Umigu de'ihi asira, because Chana cannot marry Shmuel, so Shmuel can also not marry Penina, because Penina and Chana were both the wives of Ruvain Shimon, but okay, sorry about that, the Ruvain Shimon who died, so therefore he has 2 wives who are left over, but because one of them is an Arayo, so therefore both of them are knocked out. Now, this is what Rebbe said to Levi. He said, you're wrong, you misread the whole Mishnah, why didn't you see the glowing light that this is all Rebbe Yehuda? So the Gemara says, sorry, Rebbe, too bad. I'm still going to count because Levi was a Talmud. Levi was one of the ones who put together all the Toseftas as we have them. Levi and Bar Kapara put together the Toseftas that we have in the back. So the Afal Pikain, even though Rebbe kind of lashed out at Levi, Budka Levi b'masnise, he made sure to put in a 16th case in his Mishnah. To Tani Levi said, Imo, there is a case of a mother, Pa'amin poteres tsarasa. Sometimes the mother can exempt the second wife. Upamim eina poteres tzarasa, and sometimes not. Okay, flip over the page, not the Daf Yud page, but the other sheet. Ketzad, what is the case? Hayasa imo nisuas aviv. If his mother was married to his father, so Yaakov and Rachel are married, a blue line, and they have a child named Shimon. Okay, and then Yaakov dies. B'nises le'echav me'aviv umes. Now she already has kids, so there's no yibum. But if Yaakov dies and Rachel marries David, that's completely usher. Zohi imo she'ein poteres tzarasa. In that case, there's no that does not remove Penina from any possibilities of yibum had there been a brother David. Why not? She married David, Rachel. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and the Gemara says it doesn't work because it's an Isser Kares. That's why this is not a regular Yibum case. And the language that, look at Rashi at the bottom of the page. She's not allowed to marry David because she had a kid. There's no Yibum. You're not allowed to do that. Look what Rashi says. Lo tafse kiddushin. That kiddushin doesn't work. Sharei eshes av bekares. That the mechanics of the wedding don't work. Haread mekudeshes, it doesn't work. You could say till you're blue in the face. You can give her $1 billion ring. It doesn't matter. There's no marriage there. And because there's no marriage, there's no yibum. So therefore, the tzara is she's allowed to be married. There's nothing that restricts her. The only time that the tzara becomes restricted is when there's a case of yibum, but one of the wives is an arayos. Here, the whole relationship is wrong, and the kiddushin is not tofes. However, says the Gemara, turning to the top of Daf Yud Amud Beis, Haisa imo anusas aviv. That's the case just below this one on the colored page. If Yaakov, now a red line to Rachel, if Rachel was violated by Yaakov and Shimon was born, and then Rachel married David, so that's different. That does create a ptur for the tzara of Penina. Why? Because even though it's anusas aviv, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, it shouldn't happen, but still, what's true about this marriage? Kiddushin tofsin. But here, the mechanics of the marriage actually work because there's no real relationship here. She was never married to Yaakov. So if she then marries Yaakov's brother, it's not a brother-in-law.
So Yibum's out because Yaakov has a child.
Correct.
But marriage is mutter because they were never married.
The marriage is not mutter, but the marriage works. The marriage between Rachel and David, the mechanics work. It's aser, but it's chal. Right. The language is the Kiddushin are tofsin in this case. The Kiddushin is tofes because it's aser, but they were never brother and sister-in-law. They were just forbidden to one another for separate reasons, but it's not a kares issue. Fine. And therefore, Levi concludes, we can add a 16th case just like this. But then what does the Gemara say? We had just said a couple of lines ago that we don't do what if scenarios. We don't do any of that. So it says the Gemara, Amar le Reish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan. He says as follows. Reish Lakish says to Rabbi Yochanan, Le Levi de Amar de Inami Katani. Well, since us are over here for her to marry that brother, even though it's an anusas aviv, but she can still marry David. The Kiddushin is chal. The Kiddushin is tofes. So if he's including that, then I'm going to give you another case to include. Listen to the following case. Hacholitz liavimto, a person decides to do chalitza, a simple case of yibum, not even going to draw it out, simple case of yibum. The chazar v'kitsha, and then he says, you know what? I really want to marry her. And then he marries her. Umeis belobanim, and he dies without kids, this person who married this woman, beyibum. Demigu deihi asura, because she is going to be asur tzarasa nami asira. So in this case, the Gemara says, why don't we include this in our Mishnah? So what does Rav Yochanan say back to Reish Lakish? You can't. What does our Mishnah include? Our Mishnah only includes cases of tzara tzara and tzara tzara tzara, only cases that will snowball into other cases of tzara tzara. And he says, Amar le lefisha eina b'tzara tzara, because this case can't snowball. Why didn't he give a different answer? Why didn't Rav Yochanan answer? You could have given a different answer. And says the Gemara, because it doesn't work that way. I was saying according to his own opinion. I was saying according to his opinion. According to me, I hold that a marriage after chalitza is a lav, but not kares, and therefore according to you, you still hold that there's an isser kares of this marriage after chalitza, because it's not a classical case. This line requires some work. And Rashi here discusses this on the left side. But we'll leave it for now. And then the Gemara analyzes this case still further. Itmar, what is the case that we just discussed here with the Amoraim. And we're going to stop in about 12 lines, and then we'll pick up again. I'm not sure. I don't think tomorrow is going to happen. I think Shabbos, but we might be behind a little bit, and then we'll catch up next week. Itmar, hacholitz liavimto. If a person does chalitza for his Yevama, the chazar v'kicha, and then decides to marry her, there's a big machlokas about this between Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan, as we already saw a little bit a couple lines ago. Amar Reish Lakish, who ein chayiv al hachalutza kares. Reish Lakish is of the opinion, as we said, it's only a lav and it's not kares. He says that the man who marries her after chalitza, that's not an isur kares. But the other brothers, if they were to marry her, chayavan ala chalutza kares. If they married her, there would be a chiyuv kares. That's not allowed. Al hatzara. What about the second wife? Bein hu uvein ha'achim chayavan al hatzara kares. There would be an isur kares for the brothers to marry the chalutza. However, Rabbi Yochanan argues in its entirety. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Bein hu uvein ha'achin einan chayavin lo ala chalutza kares, v'lo ala hatzara kares. There's no isur kares here at all with any of these women. In the case of the chalutza, if a person does chalitza and then marries that woman, there's no kares anywhere. Once the chalitza is done, yes, there's still a problem to marry her, but no, it is not going to be an isur kares. Now let's go through each shita. My time with Reish Lakish. Why does Reish Lakish say that some people have kares and some don't? Because Amar Kra asher lo yivneh, that he didn't want to build his brother's home. Kevan shelo bana shuv lo yivneh. Once he decides that he doesn't want to build his brother's family and he chooses chalitza, shuv lo yivneh, he's not allowed to continue building that family. You can't go back and marry her. She's off limits. Ihu hu dekai below yivneh. He's the one who is subject to this new isser called lo yivneh, that you're not allowed to marry her after chalitza. However, aval echav kidekay mekami, whatever status the brothers had to her, that's it, that's done. So therefore, she is now going to be chayiv. They would be chayiv kares for marrying her. The Allah didahu dekai below yivneh. All of this refers only to the immediate wife. What about the tzara? Hatzara kidekay mekami. But when it comes to the tzara, the brother's relationship to the tzara will always be the kares because nothing really changed for them. The only thing that changed was with the tzara herself. And the last shita for today, Rav Yochanan says, why is there no kares? Mi'ika midi de me'ikara. Really, originally, if there are multiple wives and there are multiple brothers, is there a scenario? Mi'ika midi that there's a case to me'ikara ibai hai chalitz. He could have done chalitza with this woman who's a sister, who's a husband, who's a wife of the dead brother, ibai hai chalitz, or the other women, ibai li hai chalitz, or any brother could have been the one to do this, ibai li hai chalitz. So says the Gemara, v'hashta koyal b'kares. It doesn't make sense. Kares has to be a very clear case, and here there are like so many iterations of who can do chalitza on who. So therefore, there cannot be kares in that case. Ella ihu shlichusa de achin kavi. When one person does the chalitza, he's kind of representing all of the brothers, not any one specific brother. And ihi she is shlichusa de tzara kavda, and she on behalf of her co-wife is going to be the recipient of chalitza. But in theory, you're right. It could have been a various set of iterations of who could do chalitza to who. Now, you cannot have kares in a case like that. B'shita, Rabbi Yochanan doesn't think kares has to be crystal clear. Person X cannot marry person Y, and that's not the case over here. We'll stop right here at Esvei. We'll pick up with this machlokas again in Mirza Hashem on Shabbos. I just think we're just not going to learn tomorrow, and then we'll learn on our own, but not in Daf Yomi. Wishing you all a beautiful day and a freilich and Purim.